pjnet.tv. It is 9 o'clock on the East Coast, and our bumper's running, and get ready to be blessed and encouraged and ministered to. Our guest is waiting in our green room. We're recording, streaming, and all that kind of stuff. Let's count down to Studio 33 Alpha. Well, good evening. Welcome. This is pjnet.tv. I'm Coach Prasick, and I'm glad to be here, and I am glad that you are here too. If you're watching this on Facebook or Twitter, perhaps, we're glad you're joining us. We hope to be an encouragement to you. But we also want to invite you to the real party is over at pjnet.tv. If you have a desktop, mobile, laptop, tablet, not a mobile, go over there. There's some friends waiting to meet you in our chat room. Once a month, we have Katherine Pasour come our way. She's part of our PJNet team of monthly guests that appear and share with us, and we will bring her in from her Christmassy home, decorated and all. And Katherine, I know that we're going to have a good time tonight. I've read your blog, and but I tell you, last night's going to be hard to beat. But the Holy Spirit can do it. Let's just get to work. It is Advent season. I'm not an Advent expert, so I'm going to need you to help me understand Advent better and the meaning of all the candles and such.
Well, I cannot compete with last night. I'll just be right up front on that one. But you had some awesome guests, and I was glad I was able to be in the chat room and see and hear them. But yes, as we all know, it's Christmas season. But as the Christmas season approaches, we're in the midst of Advent. And our church, like many others, has an Advent wreath with the 4 candles around the outside of the wreath, and then what is called the Christ candle in the middle. And each candle is symbolic of something. And I really won't go through what they all mean, because I didn't jot down the notes on that, even though I have written about it in the past. But I'm going to talk about the 3rd candle, which is the one that we lit on Sunday at church. And it's the candle of joy and hope. And of course, during the Advent season, we are watching and waiting for the coming of the Savior and preparing our hearts for that. And so the whole symbolism of the Advent wreath features that aspect of watching and waiting, and being in awe of what is to come, and when our Savior is born. So this 3rd candle is symbolic of joy and hope, and sometimes it's called the shepherd candle. It's the pink one on our wreath.
Right there.
Yes, it is. It's coming out of your head. Well, you are a light. Yes, well, we're all called to be a light, Coach, and there you are. You have it.
My hair's not on fire, but it will be.
No, let's hope not. Let's hope not. But the shepherds, as we don't have a lot of shepherds in our country, but of course, during the time of Jesus, there were plenty of shepherds, because goats and sheep were a unique part of the livestock of that era. But shepherds were considered of the lower class. They were sort of the dregs of society. They lived out among the sheep. They might not have the opportunity to be well educated. They were certainly economically strapped. They were poor, and so they were just not considered on the high aspect of the social class. And so I think it's really wonderful that they happen to be the ones that got to be the eyewitnesses. They were the first on the scene to see the baby in the manger. And then they were also, according to the Gospel of Luke, they were also some of the first ones that were sent out to spread the good news, because after they had seen that wondrous and exciting event, they spoke amongst themselves, let's go tell. And so they're just a wonderful example of what we're all supposed to do, and go share that good news of Jesus Christ. But Christmas is something that we celebrate joyfully and rightfully so. And the Gospel of Luke tells us about the heavenly hosts singing, the shepherds rejoicing. And then in Matthew, we see the part about those smart guys that traveled a long ways. We call them the wise men. They were considered to be astrologers, but very learned, and sometimes they are referred to as kings. But they part of their fulfillment was that it's kings would honor this new king, and so you got two really contrasting aspects of the story there. That you got the lowest people in society that were there to be
Hmm.
eyewitnesses, and then you've got some very smart, learned, educated men that came a long ways to seek the King of Kings. So that reminds us, that Jesus came to save us all, the poor and the rich and everyone in between. But why did he come? That was the title of my blog. Why he came. So why did Jesus come? Well, Matthew 121 tells us that in the dream that Joseph had about it, when he was betrothed to Mary, which was a contract. They weren't married yet, but it was a binding contract. But when he discovered that she was pregnant, he planned to put her aside quietly, as to not embarrass her or not accuse her publicly, because it would have been a drastic situation for her. She could have been stoned. But in a dream that God sent to him, the angel said, after the birth of the baby, don't put Mary aside. This is all part of God's plan. And after the birth of the baby, you're going to call him Jesus, because he comes to save the people from their sins. So that's why he came, and that's the good news. The good news that we're supposed to share. And the four gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, gospel means good news.
Hmm.
And those gospels tell the story of Jesus. His the prophecy, they share the prophecy, they share the teachings, everything, all the aspects of Jesus's life. But they're not all the same, even though they share a lot of similarities. They're not all the same. And scholars believe that Mark's gospel was written first, and the others, particularly Matthew and Luke, borrowed
Hmm.
from Mark's gospel. And then John tells the good news, but he tells it in an entirely different way.
Yeah. He was the wordsmith. He was the more literary of the group.
Oh yes, yes, more poetic and more reflective, and really gets to the heart of the situation. We really see the humanity of
Hmm.
Jesus, the human side as well as the God side in the Gospel of John. But don't you just love the Luke Christmas story?
It's
Uh,
it's the one that traditionally we have used on Christmas morning.
yes, and probably in millions and millions of Christmas plays
Hmm.
that are put on every year. That one too, and of course I can't help but remember Charlie Brown, Linus reading the story, well, reciting the story. He wasn't reading it, reciting the story, just made it come to life.
Hmm.
So I really do love that aspect. But sometimes we tend to think that the birth of Jesus is the beginning, but we know the beginning was much longer ago than that. The birth of Jesus in that stable and him being laid in a manger is just part of the story. The beginning happened way back at creation, and even in Genesis, there's some discussion of in the beginning. But um, you mentioned that John was the wordsmith, and he really, in his gospel, he really starts out with with some magic in his writing. I'm not talking about magic as in wizardry. I'm talking about
Hmm.
magic in the beauty of his words. And I'd like to read just a few verses from the very first part, because we're talking about beginnings. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made, and without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. That's just beautiful, just so beautiful. But it points out that God had the perfect plan from the beginning. It didn't just happen. God guided every single step of the plan, and that Jesus was with him at the time, and in him was life. And of course, we know that because he gives, not only did God give us life, so that we are part of his creation, but Jesus gave us life too. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. When has there been a time when you felt that darkness was creeping in on you and the light overcame it?
Well, the interesting thing is light, only light, can overcome darkness. There cannot be, you can't, what's the analogy? If a room is dark, okay, the darkness creeped in because of the absence of light. And darkness
Mm-hmm.
cannot exist in the presence of light. So you can make a room brighter by increasing the light. But I love the imagery. Before I lose this thought, I just wanted to comment. I'm so glad you read that first couple of verses from the Gospel of John, because
Mm-hmm.
it says in the beginning, okay, and then it talks about basically three things, all of them positive. Okay, it starts out with the word. And I think the actual interpretation of that is logos, meaning truth. Okay, absolute truth. So we have truth being brought in as the first element of this triune picture. Okay, and then it says the word was God, the word was with God, and then they talk about light, which is what you're
Mm-hmm.
reflecting on. Ha ha, wink, no pun intended. Light is associated later in the verse. It talks about life. So we have truth, word, and life. And you know, it's just an interesting coincidence that we have a triune God, and I don't know which one you would associate with each, but those are the three things that are valuable, that are prized and pictured. Is without truth, we have no purpose, we have no meaning. Without light, we could not even find the truth, and
Mm-hmm.
without the truth and the light, well, we would have no life. So it's a very illustrative
Mm-hmm.
combination of three very different things: the word, the truth, and the light and the life. So anyway, I found it very picturesque. John's a good writer. He could teach at some of these
Yes.
writers' conferences. You know,
and and maybe we learn from him. Uh, but you know that later on in John, Jesus says, "I am the way, the life,
the truth
and the
and the light.
truth,
Hmm.
and no man comes to the Father but by me." And so this, he was just reiterating what he said here at the beginning. So back to my question: when is there was a time that you'd be willing to share with us that the darkness crept in
Oh,
and
oh,
the
you
light?
wanted a literal. Oh, okay. You wanted a literal testament.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've all had them. You know, it's just a
Oh
matter of
yes.
degree, and they come and they go. But I know that, and there's things I'm going to have to leave out because they're too personal for me. But they also involve other people who I don't want to
Absolutely.
drag up. I don't want to pick at the scabs.
Hmm.
But
I understand.
you know, when you're in business and you have partners, that's like being married. And unfortunately, like a lot of marriages, things go wrong And there was a point at which I felt like, well, not felt like it. I mean, I had been turned against. They wanted me out, and that hurt. That's rejection. That hurt financially, and it hurt, Catherine. It hurt badly, and I was doing my best to be. One of the keynote speeches that I have is you can be at your best when things are at their worst. I was trying to live up to that and be a gentleman and not let that let them stir anger within me. And well, I can say that with God's help and some other people that He worked through to talk me, I got through that. And at the time, I was devastated. We got through it, but I felt like I'd been shortchanged, really shortchanged, and and I had some anger issues. But I look back on that today. I would not be doing this. I would not be here today if I were still doing that. And I think looking back on it with that 2020 hindsight, that God said, "I've got something different for you. Can't tell you what it is yet. You're going to have to find it on your own." But if I would have fought that, things may be very different today, and the other people involved have not gone on to prosper at all. So yeah, there's times when it gets real dark.
Yeah. But you bring up a good point. It's all part of God's plan for us, that the darkness and what we learn from it adds to the light later on. Jesus is the light, and He pulls us out of the darkness, but then all those lessons that we learn help us to grow in Him and to be a light for others. And so that's what happened with you. You had those dark experiences, but now you're in a position that you can spread the good news through PJNet and be a light
Well,
for others.
and oddly enough, part of the argument was, the role of the internet in our business. I had latched on to that, and it was not working out financially, and so they wound up giving me the internet. That's what I had left. And they had the cash cow, and but the thing that I want to remind myself of and others is, we keep talking about this good news, gospel, good news, and it is. It you can't say it any other way. But the light of this good news, there's a shadow of the cross that is cast across that manger scene that we tend not to talk about too much.
Well, but that was all part of the plan. And I asked you at the beginning, well, I didn't ask you, but I asked in my message, I asked, why did He come? Why did He come? And in the beginning, it was all part of the plan. It wasn't something that just was imagined along the way and said, oh, well, I think I'll change it and do this instead. It was all part of the plan. So in the beginning, when God created us, the universe, everything, it was all part of the plan because He knew what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
He knew we were going to fall into sin and we're going to need somebody to come and save us. So it was all part of God's perfect plan.
I love this picture that you have included in your blog. I didn't recognize it at first, but your blog points out that this is a view from inside of a tomb.
That's right.
Now think about what I just said earlier, that there is a long shadow of the cross that is being cast across that manger scene. Okay, because that's why He came, is to die for us, for our sin. And look at this picture. You realize, Catherine, there cannot be a shadow without a light. And look at this picture.
Mm-hmm.
It just really captures the sentiment that you express in your blog. Folks, I've put the website address, KatherinePasour.com, up there. And I would encourage you to, Catherine, you blog very regularly. Now, time out. This was your last blog of 2021, right?
That's right. I have to take a little time off for renewal and take some take a week or two to spend some quiet time with God and focus on family and plans for next year. So, yeah.
Okay.
But there's
Uh,
still time to read this one. Yes.
yeah, and you know what? It'll be there in a couple of weeks. It'll be
Oh,
there.
sure. It won't go anywhere. It'll
It
be
won't.
there.
It won't be pushed down by the new entry until January. So,
That's right.
um,
It'll be a new one in January.
I want to kind of wrap things up in a moment of levity. We've kind of run out of time, but you said, and it's well understood or generally understood, that the wise men came from afar, and they were thought to
Hmm.
perhaps be Chinese or some, Asia.
Persian, I think, is
Yeah, but they definitely did follow a star in the east. Now, go get your map out and find Bethlehem, and you will see that it is about 25 miles inland from the Mediterranean Sea. So, if they were following a star in the east, that would place them west of Bethlehem, but they couldn't be, well, if they were more than 25 miles west of Bethlehem, they would have arrived in a boat. I understand my geometry, Catherine. I understand.
your geometry or your geography.
Both, because if you apply both, that is the conclusion, is they must have been traveling from west to east, and there's only about 25 miles of dry ground west of Bethlehem. So,
Well, unless they first sighted the star in the east where they were and it moved westwardly. They followed it.
just going on what it says.
That's right.
Well, Catherine, by the time we do this again, it will be next month, and you'll have a new blog, and
And a new year.
now's in a new year. But Catherine, folks, Catherine comes to us every month. In fact, it's the way we do things. Is that would be the third Thursday of every month. And Catherine, you share with us, and you have been such a blessing to us, and you're such a vital part of the team, and we enjoy your presence in the chat room almost every night. I think I don't get to pay as much attention to that as I'd like to while I'm doing this. But Catherine, thank you for your part in the PJNet mission. We've got
Thank you. And Merry Christmas.
Merry
Merry
Christmas
Christmas.
to you, and we'll folks, we look forward to what's coming up. It's been great. But Catherine, thank you for your part tonight, and we'll see you on the screen anyway next year.
All right.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Folks, Merry Christmas from KatherinePasour.com. Hope you'll stop by and visit. In just a few minutes at the bottom of the hour, J.D. Winninger will be coming our way. And he's got a blog too, and he's going to take us on a tour around the Cross W Ranch. While I'm getting everything ready, I leave you with two questions. Together, they form a challenge. What is the boldest thing that you've ever done for Jesus Christ? And how long ago was that? The challenge is to not be satisfied with either answer.